Welcome back to the Unstuck Movement, true testimonies of breakthrough. Today, we have the powerful Dan Woerheide on the podcast. Dan, when I first launch into an episode, before we even go into introductions, I love to kick things off with a powerful question that leads to breakthrough in our lives. So I want to ask you, how do we separate ourselves from being attached to the outcomes in our life and in our business?
I had mentioned beforehand, Rob, that I have a one-word answer, and it's simple. It's practice. But there's much more to it, right? You have to first decide that what you're doing is worth practicing to that level where you can practice without a need for an attachment. And I know we're going to get more into that, but that's the short version.
I love that. Practicing without the need for attachment. And that can even be something that's hard to wrap your head around just hearing it. So we're going to get deep into that because I really want to investigate that with you. But first, this is the Unstuck Movement, right? This platform was created to help you break the chains that are holding you back in your life, to build perseverance, strength, boldness, and faith in you so that you can get through those glass ceilings that might be holding you back. Now, this platform is brought to you by the Connected Leaders Academy, an incredible group of over 400 entrepreneurs from all over the world. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. Today, Dan Woerheide is here, a father, veteran, and passionate life coach certified through 48 Days and Transformation Academy with diverse experiences, including being a StoryBrand guide and a master resiliency trainer. Dan brings valuable insights into personal development and coaching. Dan, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to get to know you and get to work with you. Let's go deeper into this. You're taking attachment away from the practice, but usually when we're practicing something, we're practicing for an outcome, which would create the attachment. So how do you do that? How do you take the attachment out of that?
Well, first of all, Rob, let me just say it's certainly an honor to be here with you, and I appreciate you arranging this conversation. I look forward to it. So how do you remove the attachment from the practice? Well, let me go back and say that it didn't come naturally. You mentioned just a second ago that it's hard to wrap your brain around it. And I was working personally to invest in applying the Prosperous coach method to creating clients for coaching, right? Because I'm intimately familiar with the world of online marketing, having been a StoryBrand guide and working with some amazing people in that space for several years. I've grown some great connections and relationships with people who are really good at that stuff. I still didn't want to market myself like I see so many other coaches marketing themselves. I didn't want to do paid advertising. I feel like it's all just kind of noise, especially when you think of social media. Social media to me is more of a place to create deeper connections, yet we've seen so much more advertising and promotion of whatever it may be. And it leaves a bad taste. I don't think it creates the kind of connections that are meaningful to me. So that's kind of the background. And honestly, I got stuck. I hired a coach. You know who I'm talking about. His name is Cliff Ravenscraft. He's a wonderful, wonderful coach. Brilliant mind, has done a lot of great things, both in the online marketing space and in coaching. So I reached out to Cliff and I was like, I know you're working on Prosperous Coach. Help me out. And he walked me through some really great things. But one of the things that landed for me the most was removing attachments to whom I was sending invites to for coaching. That practice felt so good. I removed. It was hard at first, right? It wasn't natural for me to look at my list of connections and say, should I invite this person or not? I would look at people and go, they'll never answer. There was all kinds of self-criticism and judgment going on, or biases based on who it was that showed up on the list. And then I said, okay, send it anyway. And I started practicing that, just sending it anyway. This was the beginning of this year. I'm going to be transparent here with you. That was the beginning of this year. And what transpired after that was revealing personally, because one, I was shocked by some of the people who I said, oh, they'll never sign up for a coaching session. were the first to sign up. Those were amazing experiences. Then I took that and I applied that to my podcast. As I looked to recreate my podcast this year, that was the next thing I started working on. My first podcast that I put out to the world, my attachment was to creating more business, to creating more listeners, all the things that we do, looking for sponsorship, all of the downloads and everything else that we typically pay attention to. And I said, what if I shift my mindset about having no attachment to any specific outcome other than enjoying the connection experiences, the conversations that I'm able to have with people, and capturing those to share with other people. My only attachment there is to the process, to enjoying creating the content that may or may not inspire someone else.
One of the biggest things because so just like the Prosperous Coach method, right, which is an amazing book that walks people through who are in coaching or maybe who are interested in what coaching is all about, this process of taking the attachment away and just serving people, having no real desire or idea that we're going to become a client coach relationship. I'm just going to listen to you and we're going to work together for 90 minutes to uncover, maybe not even work with you, right? Just uncover something for 90 minutes, listen to you, and then really start to build those relationships and build that. The first thing that comes to my mind is I know a lot of coaches, right? And I'm sure you know a lot of coaches.
Indeed.
But before I talked to you about this, I had read the book, and I know people who've read the book, but I've never had anybody reach out to me and say, hey, can I coach you for 90 minutes? And actually like take me or offer to take me through this process. So I've read the book and I know coaches who have read it and they seem to be pretty successful, but they're not using this model, this method. And the model and method in itself sounds so different from anything else when it comes to business. And it also sounds so time consuming, would be another word, of spending that time, not knowing if you're going to get anything back. It's quite a dive off the deep end, I would imagine, to take this approach. What was that journey like for you? The things that I just said, were those just things going through your head as you started to take this approach to the practice?
Yeah, to some extent. I'll again, being full transparent here, I took 2 years off of coaching because there was a lot of things going on in my life, but one of them was the frustration with the whole client creation process. I wasn't looking at it as creation back then. It was more about, getting or whatever word you want to use there, other than creating. Creating to me sounds more like a natural process. So yeah, the thought of, I'll turn it around and just say what my realizations were is it's an investment in the long game, first of all. And you have to be, to do something like this and to create the most meaningful connections I think I've ever been able to experience, you have to be willing to know ahead of time. You're going to invest time, you're going to invest energy. And again, going back to my conversations with Cliff, that's one of the things we talked about, right? It is my creative contribution to the world. I have a passion for serving people, not just serving people, but serving people as at the highest level possible that I can, especially in those moments when we're in a coaching session. I'm not, I would never claim to be the best coach out there, but I am a really great listener. I have a lot of valuable experience to bring to these conversations. And from those, lots of things have come, lots of greatness has come. And, there's been some that have just been, okay, well, thank you for this. This has been great. I can't say that anyone has said this hasn't been worth my time. I will say that, but I don't believe that everyone has gotten as much value as they might have hoped. That's my own personal, maybe limiting belief. And we can talk about that too. I don't mind. But the investment of time, right? One of the things that people ask me about this process in particular, that if they're looking to create a business as a full-time coach, and they're just starting in their journey, it's an absolute that they have another source of income. Because if I'm attached to, I need to create income from this in order for this to be successful, in order for all of these things, and everybody I talk to, whether they hear it or see it or not, can feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more important to me that I'm investing in myself just as much as I am those other people. And I'm a big fan of, I can't remember who said it right this second, but if you help enough other people in the world get what they want, you too will get what you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very true. It might have been Zig Ziglar.
It was Zig Ziglar, and I might have, the quote's not exact, but yes.
Yeah, it's very true. And also, it comes down to this concept of serving people, right? It's this concept of being able to serve others. And if anybody who's watching or listening to this has ever thought, like, I need a coach, and you went online and you started searching for coaches, then you started seeing that you fell into an algorithm of coaches trying to sell you their coaching programs. And if you were a coach, there's coaches trying to sell you their coaching programs to make you a better coach. And it is mind-numbing and obnoxious, and it turns everything. I want to ask you this too. Did it turn coaching for you for a period of time, like everybody's kind of disingenuous, and it kind of like put a stale taste in my mouth for what coaching is? And the Prosperous Coach, when you read that book, or what you're talking about right now, it kind of reignites the purposefulness behind it and the intentionality behind it. I'm not trying to sell you into my course.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get to know you and help you and serve you in some sort of way. Did you go through that process yourself?
To some extent, I think I did. I think my journey was a little bit different because I came across the Prosperous Coach on a recommendation. I read it, and immediately, by the way, we didn't mention, so the Prosperous Coach was a book written by both Steve Chandler and Rich Litvin. And I connected with Rich on social media and started following some of his content. And then I participated in a few of his programs where I connected with some really outstanding coaches, by the way. But, that's where I started really digging in. And at the same time, I was seeing what you're talking about. And all of the work I did with Rich and those programs was taking a 2-year pause from all of the work I was doing in that space. And I might have referred to it as burnout before just this moment, but yeah, it was certainly a feeling of there's too much happening out there where people, we'll go back to the attachment side of it, right? Their attachment is to creating a business, not inspiring people. I believe my purpose, by the way, is to connect with and inspire others, which ties to serving them as powerfully as I'm able to in every opportunity. So there was some of that took place in that period before I left the world of coaching for a brief minute.
It's just, yeah. I think that there's just a disconnect that I don't even know. When we fall into this world of marketing and advertising, we can disconnect ourselves from who we really want to be because we're trying to sell to somebody, or you maybe just get the wrong idea of what something is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. So just knowing you a little bit and understanding that you've gone through a couple of divorces in your past,
mm-hmm.
And you have 2 daughters, and you say that they've had the biggest impact on your worldview. I think of the term listening. You said listening is one of the most important things. I imagine when you have 2 daughters and you've gone through 2 divorces, listening is something that maybe not was a skill at one point in time that became a very powerful skill, and you have to learn from your mistakes, make your message. What was that journey like? How has that journey impacted you in what you do now?
Well, yeah, you hit on some great key points, so I'll address them the best I can. Number one, my daughter's changing my worldview, right? When my daughters were young, I was in the military, and one of the things I was involved in the military was sexual assault and harassment advocacy. So I did a lot of training around that space, and I did advocacy for survivors of sexual assault. So, there was 2 components to that. And what I realized was, the military, especially the Army, if you look at the history of the Army in our world, they're a precedent setter for so many things. People come and go all the time, and the values that we're instilling in people in the military are meant to be carried out and introduced to the rest of the world, or propagated through the rest of the world through those experiences. So we hope to create a good experience. And what I noticed was we were having a problem, right? Congress addressed there's a high rate of sexual assaults in the military. And so they created these, I think, tremendous programs. They're not perfect by any means, but it was a means to help ensure people were getting care and support. And if they chose, then they could go beyond the care and support and, potentially looking to prosecute perpetrators. I won't get into that, but what I noticed was the conversations that were happening, young people coming into the military thinking that it's okay to go into what we call a food court, which is similar to a food court in a mall, if anybody's ever experienced that. But they come into the food court and hearing the things that they would say about the pretty girl at the counter, ordering in front of them, some, what I'll just say are pretty rude comments that they would be making, even if it was sort of under their breath to each other, it could be heard. Mm-hmm. And what I recognized in that moment is I don't want my daughters going into the food court, dropping money on the floor and getting those same comments. I want people to have a different level of respect for other human beings. And so, yes, the daughters having girls changed my worldview about things like what it means to be a man, what it means to respect people and treat people with dignity and kindness. Listening, I think, has always been a gift of mine. I've always found myself in roles of mentoring and or leadership and or coaching when it comes to other people and looking for opportunities to serve people, and that's shifted along the way from different things. But, it might have started where somebody would come to me and share that they were having a stressor in their relationship with their boyfriend or girlfriend, going back to teenage years. And, that's just something we would talk through. And I always found people fascinating. I found getting beyond, we talked about this earlier, getting beyond talking about the weather or, hey, how you doing at at an introduction. I like to dig in and have real conversations with people. And so things like that were always something I was attuned to. Mm-hmm. And then I forgot the rest of your questions, Rob, because I'm so passionate about the two things that we just talked about. My daughters are one of the most meaningful things in my life. But failed marriages. I want to touch on that. I say failed marriages on purpose, and I will recognize at any opportunity my role in why those relationships were not successful. The first one was a great time, young marriage. And I think we just moved into different places really early in our lives, and there was a disconnect there. We were both really young. That ended poorly, but today I can say that my first wife and I are friends. My second wife and I, what I realized was I was a part of the military culture, right? The military preaches family first, but there's a caveat to that they don't say. And it's really what the meaning behind it, at least this is Dan Woerheide's version. I'm not speaking for the military by any way, shape, or form. What they really mean is the military family first, the mission first, the people there. And so I had adopted that entire mentality, and my focus was on two things that stand out today, 7 years later after. It was the military family first. And the other was what I think a lot of people fall prey to, which is that next level of achievement. If I can just get that next promotion, if I can just take on that next role, if I can just do these things, then all of these other things will work out. And that's just so not true. But those are the two things. That focus was not on my internal family at home as much as it should have been. And I think that's a major contributor to the breakdown in that relationship.
Yeah, man. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And that really I would imagine, first of all, thank you for your service, for being in the military. But I can imagine that becomes a push and pull kind of battle, especially when you feel pulled and pushed that your family is to that your military family, not so much to your family, and that can create a massive disconnect. So I just want to honor that. But we have to jump into a commercial break real quick, 60 seconds to shout out to the sponsor of the podcast. But you touched on something a few minutes ago that I wanted to go deeper into, how to get beneath the surface in any conversation. And that's something I want to go into for anybody watching, listening, who they need to go deeper in their relationships, or they want to, but they don't know how to. Let's talk about how we do that in 60 seconds.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
Because I think in life, and that's what I was saying at the start of this episode, I had somebody a couple weeks ago, I said, how are you doing? Just as that's what you say to somebody when you first get on a Zoom call, or you meet them. Hey, how are you doing? And they said, please don't ask everybody that question, because some people are really going through something difficult. And whenever you say that, it brings up to them something very difficult, and they feel like they want to tell you about it, but they don't feel like there's space to do that right there. And it creates a battle. And also the question means nothing really. So their response, just say something like, nice to see you. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start doing that. But we do need to have deeper conversations. We do need to get beneath the surface more in our conversations. What are just some strategies that you use for yourself in your own personal life and professional life to get deeper with people?
Well, I'll be honest. Again, this is an ongoing practice, but it's meaningful to me to connect with people at a deeper level. And I don't always do a good job of it, but I think the keys are being genuinely curious about people, first of all. It's funny, I just did a LinkedIn post. I don't spend a little bit, a couple days, maybe a couple weeks at this point. I lose track of time. But what comes to me is I try to think about the kind of people I want to connect with. And when I do, I think about, I love just, like a barbecue. I love to be part of or facilitate. I used to facilitate street parties in one of my communities that I lived in Texas. And it was so much fun learning about people beyond what their favorite sports teams, their favorite beers, etc. were. And so I like to think about, who would I invite to my barbecue, and what are the types of conversations, what are the types of people and the kinds of conversations that would elicit an interest in me inviting them to my barbecue. And it is those things. It's not the what's my favorite beer, or what's the latest thing that I'm working on from I'm brewing a new batch of beer kind of. I think that's fascinating, but I don't really want to spend a lot of time talking about it. Same with sports. I'm not big on professional sports. Listen to that, support to professional sports, maybe, or college athletics, really. Especially with some more recent events in that space. But those things don't interest me. What interests me is people, challenges that they may be facing, or lessons that they have learned from, even if it's a positive experience that they want to share from something that they've done recently. Like, we just held a 2-day surf camp here in Cape Canaveral, Florida. And if you came up and started talking to me about your experience in that surf camp, or your desire to go surfing, we could spend some time talking about that, but I'm going to be curious about the rest of your life too. It's hard sometimes when you first meet someone to get to that level of curiosity and conversation, and we often will resort to the defaults. So I'm still looking for the great opening question that might elicit much more than I'm doing okay, or it's good to be seen.
Yeah, it is a balancing act. One of the things that I found that has worked for me, it really going in just talking about somebody's career or their family, the FORM method, right? FORM, family, occupation, recreation, and then you can get to the mission part, which is the M. So the family, occupation, recreation, you dive into one of those things and just start asking questions, because normally, well, most of the time when I ask like questions about somebody's job or their family, it like there's opportunities. You'll see opportunities for deeper questions if you want to go there, and maybe sharing something about yourself opens them up to share more about yourself. And I've always felt for myself too, like I had trouble growing up being vulnerable, right? So, but the more vulnerable I am, and just like saying something nonchalantly that might be something that somebody else might have a hard time like saying out loud or being very open about with other people, that seems like open that door up. And some people are receptive to that. Some people are scared to death by that. But you don't know until you don't know until you throw it out there. But yeah, man, I'm the same with you. I really have a hard time staying on the surface when it feels like there needs to be something deeper that needs to be discussed. Or maybe that's just my desire. I can't really tell sometimes if it needs to, or if it's just my desire for it to, or like God's like revealing something to me, like you need to get deeper with this person because they need help or whatever it might be. But just to create those bonds. But when they happen, It's incredible. And I think we should just accept the fact that some people in certain situations, it's going to happen. Other people, it's not going to happen. And that's okay.
I think that's so true. And I want to point out, right, I'm always cautious about the job questions because that can go south or nowhere really quickly.
Yeah.
And so, and that maybe that's ingrained in me from having been in the StoryBrand community, right? Where, Donald Miller does an outstanding job of being able to create engaging, what he calls one-liners, to open the door to more conversation when it comes to how we talk about work. But, if you're a surf instructor, I'm going to say that's cool. Unless I have a specific interest in that, it's hard for me to dig in. But you're right. Being curious, even in that space, it stands out. When I was, that's another resource that I took from my time in the military is as a master resiliency trainer, one of the things that we taught about connections was with our junior folks, right? People who worked for us. It's often people will come and share things with you. And this is going to apply to the outside world. People will come and share things with you. We will often default in a couple directions, but let's say someone comes and shares news with you, something that they're excited about, but there might be a danger component associated to it. So one of the examples we like to use was, let's say this young kid, to be fair, a young adult came to you and he's not experienced in a motorcycle, in riding a motorcycle, but he's just bought one of the most powerful, at the time, the Hayabusa was one of the most powerful being introduced to the market when this example came up. He's just gone out and bought a Hayabusa motorcycle. And he tells you that he's excited for this purchase. As a leader, we might quickly default to the danger that we're seeing just in the information I've given you. The truth is, he's at work right now. He shared this with me, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning. We've got hours before I need to worry about addressing the danger piece. So there's nothing wrong in that moment with me helping him celebrate a moment. And here's why. That person chose you to share that piece of information with you. Whatever it is, they chose you. And if we can acknowledge that choice in the moment and help them to celebrate by asking questions like, really, what color motorcycle did you get? Why did you pick that color? Is that your favorite color? How fast can it go? where do you want to go riding first? There's questions that you can use to explore pretty much any conversation when someone shares something with you. You just have to be willing to invest in that moment and ignore the potential for a boring conversation, right? For lack of better, because if you shared with me that, your job was X, it may be something that I have zero desire to learn anything about. But my desire is to learn about people. If I can shift that in the moment, and again, this is a work in progress. I don't get this right a lot, but if we can shift that thought in the moment to how can I invest my time in learning about this person in this moment, we can probably come up with some pretty good questions to get beyond that surface level answer.
Yeah. And first there has to be a genuine interest from yourself in actually doing that. Right. So that's, going back to like Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, like a genuine interest in other people and learning about them. And that goes back to the non-attachment, like just in life in general. So say you want to be better in your business. In life in general, being genuinely interested in other people and learning about them and potentially helping them, serving them, and connecting with them, right? You have to build a genuine interest. That's going to benefit you in the business world. That's going to build better relationships, better connections. People are going to trust you. They're going to know, like, and trust you. It's going to create value in what you do. It's going to create it's going to create that authority that you can have in somebody's life, like in the things that you do. But that genuine interest, you have to detach that from any kind of outcome, just in understanding, knowing, listening, and being interested. And I think that happened to me over the weekend with a guy that I was talking to, and he was a nurse who ended up in pharmaceuticals, and he works for himself, going to people's houses and administering pain medicine in a pack that's directly cathetered into a spot on their spine that gives them pain treatment. I'm just like, I didn't even know that was a job. Like, I didn't even know that was a possibility of a profession. And it just like blew my mind, right? So from that conversation, a bunch of other things came, but my genuine interest in being like, wow, man, that's pretty cool. Like, somebody else would hear somebody say that and be like, oh, interesting. And it would go nowhere, right? So it's your desire. And I think we're all born curious, but we get curiosity beaten out of us throughout life. If we can reignite that curiosity inside of us, it makes a huge difference.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. I know. So if you look at our society and how it's structured, right, we're taught from a very early age, this is how you carry yourself. However, there's a caveat there too. So we learn to stand in line. We learn to raise our hand, ask questions. We learn all the things which really are teaching us to conform to a societal worldview. And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. In that same time frame, we're still allowed to dream at those early school ages. When we start getting into later years in high school, the dreams, which I think alludes to what you're talking about, we're told at some point we have to put aside and go get a job or go continue our education and then go get a job. And we get stuck on these paths of conformity. And that's not for everybody. I know I am not a big fan of formal education. And for me, it's great for other people. And I have like 300 plus college credits, but I don't enjoy it. So I enjoy learning. So I go occasionally and then I pull out and then I go back in, and it just depends on what's being offered. And I may go take a class, which I just end up getting bored with the other stuff that's required, I think. It is so just a constant need for learning, growth, connection, all of those things for me, serving people and looking for those opportunities. But to go back to the Prosperous coach and kind of where we started this piece was, that's the first step in creating a business as a coach. If you're looking into the Prosperous coach approach, it's connecting, right? Connecting with people. And that's where I got stuck. That's where a lot of people get stuck, I think, is how do you look at your contacts list, for instance, and go, who do I want to connect with? And Rich will suggest just pick up the phone and pick one today and call them and say, hey, how you doing? Been a while. What are you up to? maybe there's an opportunity that presents itself and maybe not. But if you're connected to, I have to create an outcome from this, there won't be.
Mm-hmm. If you connect it to, this is going to help me grow, become a better person, become a better connector, become a better, I was going to say relationshipper. If I want to be a better relationshipper, it's going to be me having more relationships and revisiting those things. Hey, before we finish this up, I wanted to ask you, you spent many, probably thousands of hours in the ocean surfing. What has the ocean taught you?
Peace
about life.
Peace. And that is my meditative space. Like this weekend aside, because we were there for the purpose of teaching 40 other people how to surf. And there's a tremendous experience associated with that, and the connectedness with the other coaches that were there, and the people who showed up to be a part of this, or even just to support it, was amazing. And there's a lot of value there. But for the ocean, for me, the ocean represents so much, right? It's the vastness of the ocean, sitting in front of those waves, just sitting there on the beach. I don't even have to be surfing. Is all about creation and being connected and grounded. And that, again, is my meditative space. I haven't yet acquired the skill of meditation as other people might think of meditation. But what I found, and what someone's pointed out to be true to me, is meditation is simple. It means anything you can do to focus solely on that one thing and tune all the other stuff out. Tune out the bills that I need to pay today, or what day rent may be due, or my mortgage, or what may be going on outside of that moment. And when I'm surfing, that's what happens. When I'm sitting on the beach watching the sun, I love a sunrise and I love a great sunset. I take pictures of them and share them on my social media all the time. Same thing. That vastness, that it's so big, there's so much that could happen, and there's so many fears that could be associated with the ocean. Mm-hmm. I choose to embrace it and recognize its vastness and try my best to just be a part of it. So it's connected me with nature in a way that I can't say other things have really given me from that experience standpoint.
Man, I love that, man. We all need that in our life in some way, shape, or form. That's really, really good. So if people want to experience a non-attached complimentary 90-minute session with you, they can go to danw.us and just click on the top right-hand corner there. It says apply to work with me. And they can make that happen with you, right? By doing that.
Yeah. So they'll apply. It's a, fairly short application, just gives me some insights into who they are, what they're doing, what they may have done. And then there's a space there, Rob, at the bottom, if they put your name in there, as to how they found out about me, then I'll be sure that it's a completely complimentary session, no strings, no obligations, or expectations that you would ever become a paying client.
Cool. Amazing, brother. I love it. I love your approach and just how you do what you do. I want to thank you so much, Dan, for being a part of the Unstuck movement.
Oh, dude, it's my honor to be here, truly. And let me just take this moment to say, if you like what Rob is doing here, be sure to go follow his YouTube channel. Do you have that link handy by any chance?
Yeah, it's just the Unstuck Movement.
Perfect.
On YouTube.
Yeah. So go subscribe to that channel. Check out more of the work that Rob is doing. Rob, I really appreciate the opportunity to share just a little bit of my insight and this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks.